Hamlet with Young Entertainment. So excited to FaceTime you.
Hi, thanks for answering the call. So excited to chat.
Okay, full disclosure, I am one of the biggest Lizzie McGuire, Hilary Duff fans on the planet, and you
Mm.
were a writer on the Lizzie McGuire reboot, the now defunct Lizzie McGuire reboot for Disney Plus. Thank you so much on behalf of all the Lizzie fans for giving us some closure with the TikToks that you've been sharing. So, as we all know, they went viral. All sorts of entertainment media companies picked them up. Why now? Why 4 years after all of this ended did you decide to talk about this on TikTok?
Yeah, good question. So I've been posting on TikTok just sort of about my job search over the last year. Um, and someone commented, can you do a video about the jobs that you've had before? And so I decided to do a video about the last job that I was really excited about, which was Lizzie. And that just happened to be 4 years ago. I kind of like forgot that a pandemic had happened and 4 years have gone by, which sounds really crazy. Um, and yeah, so I made that first video and I just kind of caught on. And my intention was never to like reveal secrets or like come from a place of like, I don't know, negativity or anger or anything. I just genuinely loved working on the show and really just kind of wanted to share a little bit about my experience. So
Well, I'm grateful that you did. Thank you again. And how big of a fan of you or were you of the original Lizzie McGuire series before coming onto the project?
I mean, massive, massive fan. I was asked a similar question in another interview and had to look up the dates of the original series, which I forgot. I just wanted to see how old I was, and I was 11 when the show first started airing, and then 14 when it stopped. And I feel like those years are that like really awkward, weird, beautiful, messy, confusing, like tween years. And I just don't know a character that like captured that stage of life so beautifully and perfectly. And I think the genius of it was animated Lizzie, which I had never really seen that before. And so yeah, I don't know. I feel like she was just incredibly relatable and capturing like what a kid is going through both in their head, but then also externally too, right? Like I feel like it's one of the first episodes. You just get this insight into Lizzie being this like really kind of smart and strong and independent person. And at the same time, you then hear her in her head. She also really wants to be a cheerleader or to like walk in a fashion show, which is just both of those things can be true. And I just think she's was super relatable and spoke to me at the time.
Yeah, I think my life changed on January 12th, 2001, when the show first premiered. And I think for anyone who was a tween during those years, so millennials who were around the right age at that right time, Lizzie really spoke to us. And we all share that deep connection to the show. So that's cool to know that you were such a big fan and had that knowledge of the show firsthand coming into writing for the reboot. Before we talk more about that experience, what was your professional career like, your professional writing career like before the Lizzie reboot? Because you worked on some other cool projects for Disney and with Terry Minsky, the creator of Lizzie McGuire.
Yeah, I mean, long story short, I basically worked for Disney for about 10 years in various capacities. So I started off at Pixar working in production, and then I moved to LA about 10 years ago, and I started off in development at Disney Junior. And it was when I was an assistant in the development department that I kind of decided for myself. I mean, I had had a voice in my head since I was a kid. Speaking of voices in your head, um, telling me that I was a writer, wanted to be a writer. I couldn't even say like I want to be a writer. But it was in working in development and learning how to be a development executive and give notes on other people's scripts and to develop shows that I finally felt like, you know what? I want to be on the other side of this. I want to be receiving notes from executives. And so yeah, I sat down and told my boss about that. he called an executive up at Disney Channel. We were in the same building and asked if he would just meet me as like a general sort of meeting. And they were interviewing for writers' assistants. And he said it's a new show. It's called Andy Mack. And I said I would love to interview. And so ended up getting that job, and that started my writing career. So yeah, I was on Andy Mack for 3 years. And then after that, I did Shook, and then Spidey and His Amazing Friends, and then Lizzie. So yeah, the 4 shows that I've been on have all been in the Disney family. Mhm.
Nice. And I know you talked about this on your TikToks, but I do want to point out that while you were working on Andy Mack, you helped write the first gay storyline for a character who was openly gay on a Disney Channel show, which was
Yeah.
monumental. That show was not actually my era of Disney Channel, but because Terry Minsky was involved, I went back to watch here and there, and I wanted to see that Cyrus story. So thank you
Mm,
for working on that, and congrats. That was such a lovely show, and that's
mhm.
done so well.
Yeah, that was such an honor to be a part of. I was the only queer person in the writers' room, so I definitely felt a little bit of pressure to do do Cyrus's character and journey justice. Um, but yeah, it was such a great show. And I don't know if you noticed, there are some similarities between Andy Mack and Lizzie McGuire in like small ways. So Cyrus and Gordo have some similarities. They both have shrink parents. So you can tell it has the Terry Minsky touch, both of those.
Sure. And a lot of Sophia Wiley fans are
Mm.
followers of Young Entertainment. So what was it like to have her star in the other project that you worked on?
Oh
Shook.
my God. God, what a star. I was working on Andy Mack, and to Terry's credit, she actually threw my name out to the department that wanted to develop a short form series. Disney Channel hadn't really done a short form series in a long time. I don't know if you remember, this was like, I don't know, 2007, 2008, but they did As the Bell Rings with Demi Lovato. And so they hadn't really done short form in a while. And they wanted to do a short form series, and they wanted Sophia to be in it. And they recognized that she's a star, she's an incredible dancer. Um, and so I was able to pitch on that. They told me it's going to star Sophia and it will be about a dancer. And so I pitched what became Shook. Um, and it was so fun to work on. Sophia is um, a dream, and she only just keeps getting bigger and better. And she's unbelievably sweet and talented. And yeah, it's so cool to see how she's gone from Andy Mack to see what she's doing now.
Very nice. Well, let's get to this Lizzie reboot. Okay. So Terry Minsky gives you a phone call. You mentioned this in your TikToks, inviting
Yes.
you to be a part of this project. What can you
Yes.
share from that phone call, and how did you react to her offer?
Well, first of all, I don't receive a lot of phone calls. Like my phone doesn't always ring, so I'm always startled when my phone rings. Um, I mean, so I saw her name on my phone, and I had heard that um, Lizzie might be happening. So I had a sense that it was possibly going to happen. And so I picked up, and she said, how would you like to be a staff writer on Lizzie McGuire? And that's, I mean, a dream, like a dream sentence to hear. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I mean, I wanted to be in a writer's room again, so badly. I don't know if most people realize when you work on a show, first of all, it's hard to get jobs in writers' rooms, and then you get them, and you're on a show. It's amazing, and it's really only 3 or 4 months, maybe, and then it's over. And then you're back to finding a new job again. So Andy Mack was done, and Shook was done, and I wasn't working. And so that was such a dream phone call. Um, Yeah, and then I just hung up and called my parents and said, I'm gonna be a staff writer on Lizzie McGuire. Yeah, it was crazy. It's what dreams are made of, as Hillary would say.
Perfect. Okay. Hilary Duff fans, you said you'd heard that maybe something was in the works for a Lizzie McGuire reboot. Hilary Duff fans like myself, we kind of got a sense of that. I would say early 2019. We were picking up on Hilary saying things in interviews. Based on your knowledge, what was the timeline for the project and its development? And were you guys keeping it a secret? When did the writing begin?
Yeah, so Terry, I think it was August 2019 when Terry called me. The room started in September 2019. So we were together for about a month um, before the filming of episodes 1 and 2 started, which both episodes were filmed in November of 2019.
Wow.
Um, we After that in December of 2019, we were continuing to write and we're getting ready for episode 3 to be filmed, which was slated for January 2020. I think end of January 2020. Then we got back from the holidays, and I remember the date, January 9th, 2020. We got sent home without much explanation. And so that's the incredibly short version, but that's the timeline of my experience, which was about 4 months in total, September 2019 to January 2020.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
January 9th. Such a sad day. And I can remember when the news first broke that Terry was no longer in the project involved in the project. So let's go back to a happier moment, which was back to when the show was starting and when it was announced in August of 2019. So
Mhm.
with this is when the writers' room was beginning. To be clear, you said that Disney greenlit a show about Lizzie McGuire at 30. What did the writers feel was the expectation? A PG or a PG-13 rated show?
We didn't know. We um we had a pilot script that Terry had written. Terry had written episode 1. So we had that script to go off of. And to our knowledge, Disney Channel had signed off on it. It's also worth mentioning there were 2 sets of executives on the project, which I think complicated things. So we had Disney Channel executives in addition to Disney Plus executives. So that's a lot of cooks in the kitchen. And also remember, we're talking about 4 years ago. So Disney Plus was relatively new and figuring out who are we? What kind of content are we going to have? And so I do think they were very much in the process of figuring out what they were comfortable with. And it just was terrible timing for us trying to do a show that was definitely a little edgier and more adult. Had we had the show been developed now, I think this would be a totally different story because we have examples, like for example, of Love Victor going from Disney Plus to Hulu. So I really think that we were like victims of timing, and it wasn't time. Like they weren't ready to do an adult show, and I don't think we're yeah, just super clear on what they wanted and what they were comfortable with. So it was a lot of us in the writers' room kind of just throwing things at the wall to see what would stick, but we ultimately felt like it was kind of a moving target. And so I don't think that anybody involved was sort of set up for success, I would say. It was tough.
Yeah. Well, executive voices aside, what about the pressure to please the fans? Did
Oh my
you
God.
feel that? And what research did you do? What was the process coming into the project and really taking this head on?
There's a lot of pressure. I mean, when you're dealing with something that is as beloved as Lizzie is and Hilary Duff. So, everybody in the room was familiar with it. I think the fandom kind of varied though in terms of how familiar people were with every episode of the original series. Um, Before we started in the room, I think this comes from me having been a writer's assistant for 3 years. But before we started in the room, so it was not long after I got that call in August from Terry. I watched. I think I had to buy it on iTunes. I watched every episode of the original series and took notes on it. So I have a Google Doc that's incredibly long of every episode and bullet points about um, basically like the character information that you sort of learn in each episode because I wanted to come in on the first day and have a knowledge of the original series. The idea um, of just not like honoring what the original established. I felt like I couldn't be a part of this and not sort of have that knowledge. Um
And I, having done a Lizzie McGuire recap podcast, my notes app in my phone is full of all those Lizzie McGuire episodes, all the notes that I went back. So we should compare notes sometime for sure.
oh my God, yeah, I'm sure yours are far more comprehensive
I don't know. Okay,
than
well,
mine.
you mentioned that Terry wrote a pilot. So were you guys just kind of jumping off that to start?
Yes.
Okay.
She came in with the pilot written and those sort of initial like story points in place. So also I think it's fun, just a little like fun fact. The first episode, it was going to be called Elizabeth McGuire, not Lizzie McGuire. So like on the cover page of the script of the pilot says Elizabeth McGuire, not Lizzie McGuire because she's gone through a rebrand in living in New York. So I remember seeing that and thinking like, oh my God, why does it say Elizabeth? Um,
She's grown.
I know she's great. So yes, the pilot was in place in terms of Lizzie being turning 30 in the pilot, living in New York. She's an interior designer. Some of that was in place. We went from there and started brainstorming what happens next. What is her, is she's going back home? What does her life look like? Who's in her life? And so, yes, we sort of used that pilot as like a kicking off point for our brainstorming for the first couple weeks where we were just sitting in that room, blue skying, like, what's going to happen? What do we want to happen in this series? What old characters are going to be there? What new characters are going to be there? And that was kind of the most like exciting part was when the possibilities were kind of endless and the whiteboards in the room were just filled with what is this show gonna be?
Yeah. Well, having devoted yourself to this project, even for the short amount of time that you did, how would you, I'm curious, how would you describe the Lizzie McGuire that you got to know as Lizzie McGuire at 30? And how is she different from when she was 13?
I mean, in some ways, she's not she's not so different. You know, sort of what I said at the beginning about that the genius of animated Lizzie being able to capture that really like relatable gap between kind of who you are in your head versus who you are sort of out in the world and how other people see you. Um, Adult Lizzie is very much the same and just trying to figure out um, who she is. I think she was sort of going through a relatable journey, at least for me. So I should also say I was 30 when the room started, and Lizzie in the pilot turns 30. So I definitely felt that like stage of life that she was in, and she's had this vision of um, this life that is full of stability, a relationship that she's really committed to, and a job that she's really feeling good in. And in the pilot, the rug gets pulled out from under her, and she loses all of that. And to me, that felt very, very real. I mean, it's not unlike what actually happened when the show got canceled and the rug got pulled out from under me. And I found myself in a very similar position that she was in the pilot. I ended up going home for about 6 or 7 months after that. Um, so I think in the ways that she was relatable to 13, 14-year-olds watching, I I feel pretty strongly that people in their late 20s and early 30s would have related to this journey that she's going on now as an adult.
Art imitating life for you.
Yes.
Okay. Do you know if Hillary had any input on how on where Lizzie wound up or how she wound up as an adult?
Yes. She was in the room with us sometimes. Um, those were some of the some of the best moments. We all, again, we're fans of the show and fans of her. So to have her sitting on the couch or at the table with us was incredible. I mean, she would share stories about her life, not with the intention of saying, this is my life. You must, write everything I'm saying into the show. She just was there. Um, in a spirit of like openness and generosity and just sharing her life experience with us. And then we would, after she would leave the room, kind of chat and end up incorporating a lot of what she shared into the show. Um, yeah, and it's a shame that people won't see that. I'm thinking of I'm always like, I don't know how much I can share. When it comes to sharing what she shared with us, I want to be sensitive to that. But there are just a few moments from her life that I thought were, again, buzzword. I feel like I keep saying the word relatable. Um, just moments that she shared where after she left the room, some of the writers were like, oh man, like I've definitely had that moment too. And so those were the moments that ended up in the show.
Love to hear that as a big Hilary Duff fan. Uh,
Yeah,
let's move down the timeline. Let's get the timeline moving here. So, what can you
sure.
share about your memories from the kickoff dinner that you had with the McGuires?
That was a really special night. So that was we had the Disney Channel executives, the Disney Plus executives, all of the writers, and then Hillary was there. And yeah, the family, I think, yeah, the family was there. Jake was there, who played Matt. Um, and yeah, I don't know how to describe it. It felt like a dream to me. I know that sounds so cheesy. But um, Gary Marsh stood up and sort of gave this. He was the head of Disney Channel at the time and gave a whole speech just about how excited everybody was. And then we had dinner, and most people left, like all the executives had left, and so it was just the writers, like the 7 or 8 of us. I posted some pictures from it, and then Hillary and Hallie, who played Joe. And we ended up just hanging out for God, I don't know how long. At one point though, we were dancing and I was dancing with Hillary and I was in my head thinking, oh my God, if 12, 13-year-old Jonathan would know that he was going to grow up to be dancing with Hilary Duff. Somebody has a picture of it somewhere.
Oh man.
Um, but it was amazing. It was amazing. It was a celebration. It was the beginning of the show. We had just started, and spirits were really high, and yeah, it was great.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I think I go back to that time. I think there was this period of time for me, and I'm not going to talk too much about myself here because I don't want to waste our interview time, but there was this
Oh
period
my
of time
God, yeah.
between when the reboot was announced and when it all fell apart where I was just so happy. And I just sometimes I'm like, I wish I could go back to that because nothing's quite been the same. Of course, we had 2020 right after all that. But anyway, because like I'll just say that I was in the audience at the D23 Expo when Hilary Duff came out and announced the reboot. So that was
Oh,
such a special moment, and I consider it like the best day of my life. In August
oh,
20 or August of 2019, and I mean, because it was a surprise and no one knew. And anyway, okay, moving
yeah.
on, moving on. Okay, once production was underway, you talked on your TikToks about how it felt to see the sets and what it was like to watch the cast Can you elaborate on that a little more? Like what it was like to see Hilary playing Lizzie again, but as an adult, and to see them all just fall back into those roles that we knew as kids.
Yeah, it was wild. It was really surreal to see them building those sets. So the writer's room was in the same building as where all the sets were. So we could literally like hear construction. And I remember when they finally let us like go on the sound stages to see the sets, and they had really recreated it exactly like the original. Of course, though, time has gone by, so there were small changes, but it absolutely like still had that feel. And I remember going into Lizzie's room and kind of watching. I was kind of quiet, like I was watching Terry kind of take it all in because she had I mean, it's her baby. It's her character, and she had really kind of specific thoughts on what would be like on the shelves, for example, yearbooks, old pictures. So just watching her kind of give specific notes about what should be in the room was really cool. Um, I wish I could have been there in New York for where they filmed episode one, right? Like I don't remember the timing of it all, but maybe at D23, did they show any pictures? Like there was that picture of her carrying the alpaca, like kind of brushing down the street, like that's sort of one of the pictures that got put out there. I wish I could have been in New York for that. Just it felt like because I've seen the first episode, it had a um like Sex in the City or Younger, like it had that vibe to it. And it's not a coincidence that Terry, was a writer on Sex in the City, and she also worked on Younger. She wrote on Younger as well. So people would have loved it.
Oh man. That was kind of the vibe that I was hoping for, honestly, was kind of Lizzie in her Carrie Bradshaw phase of life. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Well, you revealed some big plot points in these TikToks of yours. We won't get too in depth into them because people can go back and look. But I mean, Lizzie and Gordo not in game, Lizzie and Ethan hooking up, Miranda being queer. What what were you thinking doing this? Were you nervous to share this? Were you nervous to share this information? Was there like a time period where you were not allowed to share any of this? Or how did that feel for you to like get this out and to see people react the way they did?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I should first mention me posting on TikTok is relatively new. Like I've not been doing that long. It's taken me so long to get comfortable being in pictures, let alone like filming a video with myself in it. And it's funny because I've since Lizzie been working in social media marketing, like helping brands make TikToks. So I've been helping other people make TikToks, but I've not been in them myself. So me posting is relatively new. So I had a lot of I mean I was anxious like posting all this stuff. Absolutely had a fear of am I gonna get in trouble? Is Disney going to sue me? I mean, um I checked my contract before I posted all these things, and to my knowledge, was not in breach of anything. It's been 4 years. That it's a long time. Um, so yes, I was nervous. But again, like I kind of said in the beginning, I wasn't trying to come from a place of like of anger or say like, oh, I'm so mad at Disney. Like I really just wanted to share. I know there's so many fans out there. I'm a fan myself. I had such an amazing time working on the show. I just wanted to share a little bit about my experience. So yeah, I mean, I can't believe that it sort of got the attention that it did. But if anybody's ever doubting if the fans are out there, doubt no more because they are there. They are there and they are strong and they are passionate and they want this show so badly.
And I myself included. And I do have some very like fan specific questions that I was hoping
Yeah.
maybe we'll try to like rapid fire through some of these. So, can you clear up any confusion among fans about establishing that the McGuire family lives in LA? Because in the original, it's never quite said that they live in LA, but now they're in LA.
Yeah, I don't think to my knowledge we were ever going to like explicitly say Los Angeles. Um, God, I wish Terry was here because all of this information is in her head. Um, I believe like the family house was supposed to be like in the valley, like so not in like West Hollywood, for example. I know the episode that I wrote was going to take place in West Hollywood. Some people commented like, "Oh my God, were you actually going to film at Flaming Saddles?" Um, no, I doubt we would have actually gotten to film at Flaming Saddles in West Hollywood. Um, but yes, it's supposed to be the Valley in California.
Got it. And I think I saw on Jake Thomas, did you go back to the original, like, real house that
Yes,
yes, okay. So there
yes.
is a real house for the McGuires in the LA area, and you went back, recorded there for maybe
Yes,
some outside.
just to be clear, the exterior of the house is actually, yes, is the house from the original. The interior is a set. That was rebuilt on the soundstage. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Movie magic, TV magic. Okay.
TV magic.
Going along here, any insight on the episode titles? I know you just gave this information about Elizabeth McGuire, but I remember seeing like 13 going on 30 and then Bangs was a rumored title. Any insight on the titles of the first few episodes?
It's always amazing like what information is out there. Yes, those are the names of the first two episodes. So the title on the cover of the pilot is Elizabeth McGuire, 13 going on 30. That's the name of the first episode. Bangs is the name of the second. Um, as for the names of the other ones, they were still being figured out. So I can't recall any of the other names.
Sure. But you mentioned an Ariana Grande song, or that Lizzie listened to Ariana Grande. What song did she listen to? Do we
In
know?
my head,
Okay.
in my head. Yeah.
Well, that makes sense.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
What can you share about? There's one clip that was released from the show or that we've seen. It was a part of a promo early 2020 where Lizzie says, "Hi, it's me." What was happening there?
That's that's so funny. That's such a like small moment in the first episode. Um her boss, Damien, is doing a photo shoot. Like I think it's like the equivalent of like New York Magazine, is they're coming to his apartment to do like a photo shoot with him in his apartment. And Lizzie has gone out to get some like last minute stuff to kind of like zhuzh up the place. So that's why she's carrying this alpaca and she's rushing and she's getting in an Uber. Like it's the Uber like waiting for her. And she's like, "Hi, it's me." And then she gets in. Yeah.
Got it. That's all we've ever gotten as far as video from Disney.
Oh
And then
my God.
the outfits. Anything you can comment on there because on the outfits because that yellow jacket we've seen her in that green top and the bangs and
Mm,
she had a Lisa Frank tee on in one
mm.
behind the scenes photo, a blue button down in one that had something inscribed on it. I don't know what it was. Any commentary on that?
Yeah, talk about wanting to honor the original. The costume designer was incredible. Like young guy, totally like understood who Lizzie was and had a sense of who she would be now. So everything you saw her wearing, to me, it just made sense. It's like what she wore when she was 13, but the adult version, like an elevated version. I think I mentioned in one of my TikToks, there's a really cute exchange between her and Ethan when they're really like kind of catching up for the first time. And he's kind of like, "Dude, like you haven't changed like at all." And she's like, "Yeah, I mean, I have like definitely like less less butterfly clips." Um, So, and I think I mentioned this too, but there's I feel like I'm an advertisement. They're not paying me to say this. I genuinely love this store. There's a spot called Bearded Beagle. That's in LA, and they have great stuff. And that's where a lot of her wardrobe came from.
Okay, before we wrap up, I did want to ask about your episode, episode 6 that you talked about writing,
Yeah.
and and the character that was loosely based on you, I think. So tell me about the process for writing that, and then also, I think in that same question, with that same question, I would love to hear about, the LGBTQ plus community being a part of this show and why that was important.
So I pitched, I was one of the first days in the room. Again, that like really exciting time when the possibilities were endless and the show could be anything. We each kind of pitched like a dream episode, like what we would just love to see Lizzie doing. And I was just telling everybody in the room about like a kind of a typical night out that I would have with my friends in West Hollywood, beginning with the pregame at an apartment, kind of sitting around, drinking, watching YouTube videos, listening to music. Part two is the actual night out, drinking, dancing. And then part three is the 2 a.m. late night food after the bars have closed and you've been drinking and you're buzzed and you go and get a slice of pizza at 2:30 in the morning. And that's it. I just sort of pitched it, kind of filed it away. And then we were trying to figure out what was going to happen in each episode. And we got to episode 6 and we're trying to figure out, like, all right, what's going on in this episode? And I was like, what about a Fruit Loop? So a Fruit Loop is what some people call bar hopping in West Hollywood. And it just kind of worked for like where the characters were at. So yeah, the majority of the episode is Lizzie with Carson out in West Hollywood. At the same time that Matt is on a date with Lizzie's neighbor, Suze, who was going to be a new character. And Sue's little weird side note is spelled Sooz, just for reference. So what was the second there was another part to your question.
The
Oh,
LGBT plus representation. I mean, I think with Hillary being the queer icon that she is,
yes,
and Lizzie too. Let's be honest. I feel like that was something that I was hoping for
yes.
and hoping to see.
I think that TV should reflect what the world actually looks like. You can't tell a story about a 30-year-old, woman in the world without including queer characters. So it felt it super important for me for that to be a part of the world. So yeah, Carson. There's actually a funny Carson story. So when they were auditioning people for that role, Terry wrote sides, which are, the little 1 or 2 pages that all the actors read when they come in. She had to write sides for it like pretty quickly. I think it was like the day before, like she only had like a day to write this scene that everybody coming in to audition for Carson was going to read. And she came into the room and asked us to read them. And she said, Jonathan, I kind of based him off of you. And I was like, oh God, I'm about to read my what what my boss thinks of me via these sides. And I remember reading it, and it's a scene where Carson is in a bar with Lizzie, and he's super anxious and just like spiraling, like as all these attractive gay men are coming in. And I was like, yeah, she nailed it. This is me. This is pretty much how I would be in a gay bar.
That's great.
Um,
Funny.
yeah, and as for Miranda being queer, um, it just felt right. Like, I don't know, I always kind of felt like in my gut that she might have been. I was not at the age between the ages of 11 and 14 when the original was on. I was not openly gay. I came out when I was 21, but I definitely felt I don't know, connected with Miranda in some way. And so her being queer just sort of felt right.
Yeah. Lizzie being a gay ally and having gay best friends, I mean, it just feels right. That feels right to
It
me.
does feel right.
Okay, well, we're going to wrap up here and talk a little bit about how things ultimately ended for all of this. So, January 9th, can you tell us a little bit about what happened or what you found out and what seemed to go wrong? I
Hmm.
know, such a downer.
The dark day. Um, you know, it's yeah, I said before that I had a little bit of anxiety in posting these videos and trying to be careful on what I talked about. I'm a little like hesitant to share some details like about the end. I think I can sort of say in the weeks like leading up to January 9th, so sort of end of December, beginning of January, we were having a hard time like figuring out um what the executives wanted. It was a lot of back and forth trying to figure out where the season was going to go. Again, we'd already filmed one and two, episodes one and two. And so there was a lot of
Gotten
back
the
and
thumbs up. Sorry to interrupt,
yeah,
but gotten the
and
thumbs up.
and as far as I know, they were comfortable with the first two episodes, and it was in discussions about episodes three and beyond um, that I think that's where the issue started coming in, and they weren't happy with our plan for the rest of the season. Um, I would love to have been a fly on the wall. I don't know what those Disney Plus and Disney Channel executives were talking about behind closed doors. As a writer in the room, I was not privy to any of that. So again, this is just my my experience of it all. But I really just don't think we were on the same page. And it was on January 9th. They called our producer, and we were told to put our stuff in boxes and go. Like there was not a really a discussion. We didn't have clarity on what was happening. Not long after we were told, the headlines came out, all over. And so the timing of it all it just didn't feel good. I mean, we had just found out, and then to see it kind of blasted all over the internet just didn't feel good. And we got sent home, and that was it. There was we never heard from the executives either at Disney Channel or Disney Plus. I would have always been sad, but I would have loved to have heard from them, to just say, hey, thanks, like thanks for the work. Like we really saw you trying, and um, thank you, but sorry, it's not going to work out. To give me some sense of closure. Maybe that's why I posted about it 4 years later, because I don't have closure with it. I'm still upset. I'm still really disappointed about how it went. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Do you
here we
think
are.
do you think the Lizzie McGuire reboot will always be our Roman Empire?
Yes,
Same,
yes. I mean, a
same.
lot of people commented saying like, "Is it going to happen again? Like, do you think it could happen?" And I truly, I have no idea. I mean, I would love for it to happen again. My guess is if it ever did happen, um, again, I have no idea. I would imagine they might want to do it with a whole new set of people. Like, I don't know if I would be asked back to work on it. I would love to. I can't imagine if it does happen and I'm not in the writer's room. I don't know if I could watch it. I don't know. I think it would be incredibly challenging to watch if I don't get to be a part of it. So
I know. And for me as a fan, I really trusted Terry Minsky's version and therefore the Terry Minsky's vision and therefore the vision that her writing team had and Hillary's as well. So it was such a disappointment as a fan. It was so frustrating. And there was a lot of question marks. But before it even officially was done, there seemed to be a period of time where maybe they were trying to work on it again. And then by the end of 2020, it was, Hillary posted that it was done. So And no insight into what might have gone on between the time that Terry's team was out and then it finally ended. You don't know anything about that.
I don't know. I don't know how much I can say. There was an attempt to do a different version of it. Um, that ultimately it seems like Hillary was not comfortable with. I mean, I got the sense from kind of later conversations again during that tricky like back and forth, like end of December into beginning of January, that they wanted like a younger version. Um, and by a younger version, I mean like had we shown Lizzie trying to start a family like with kids, like I think they wanted to kind of age it down. Um, which we didn't want to do. And Hillary didn't want to do that either. So
Yeah, I don't think the majority of fans wanted that either. So,
nobody wants that. I mean, that's like what Raven's
right,
home
it's fine.
was
I mean,
doing,
Raven's doing her thing.
which
It's
is
cool.
fine. That's
Yeah, that's not what we wanted. I'll say quickly, I was when all the reboot started and when that whole nostalgia era began, I was very much against. I was like, please never touch Lizzie McGuire, please don't. And then I came around to the idea of, well, what if Lizzie was an adult and not a mom yet, but just an adult living her life? I mentioned the Sex and the City thing. What if it was Lizzie in her Carrie Bradshaw era? I mean, that I was on board for. And then when they came out and announced it as that, it just everything felt right. But of course, sadly, it just didn't work out. What do you think the future holds though? What do you make of all of that looking back? Do you take that as just this very special experience that you had and you'll always be grateful for, even though it ultimately didn't work out?
yeah, of course. I'm incredibly grateful for it. It's definitely the most like exciting like work related thing that I've ever been a part of. I think that when you're a young kid, and so I grew up in the closet, like in a small town in Maryland, and TV and movies too, they were religion to me. Like they helped me get from today to tomorrow. I mean, they were so precious to me. So it is truly, as an adult, like such a gift and an honor to be able to be a part a part of shows, let alone like one of the shows that was so formative for me. And so I don't want to let this show being canceled kind of cloud how this show and this character sits with me. I always will. And you know what? It was really nice getting to post these videos again, coming from a place of joy and like let's just celebrate this character that we all love. And thousands of comments were just reading through them. It was amazing and warmed my heart. And I'm grateful ultimately.
Love
Yeah.
that. I think when it all fell apart, I remember posting about it on my personal social media and just saying, this doesn't change what that character meant to us growing up and what she still means to us. That it just doesn't change that. So
It doesn't. Yeah. And it's might sound cheesy, but I always felt like Lizzie and Hillary, of course, who played her, kind of gave you the feeling that you could be friends with her, that she was just like you. And I think people would have found the same with 30-year-old version of her.
you get it, Jonathan. You get it. She's our best friend in our head.
A
Okay.
best friend in our head. Yeah.
Well, we're going to end on some fun here with a quick round of a game from my podcast. Shout out to Duff Enough. Everyone watching should go check that out. But I always ended my podcast with a round of Quizzy McGuire. So, two Lizzie trivia questions for you. Are you up for this?
I mean, let's try. I'm famously terrible at trivia, but let's do it.
What mythical creature is on Lizzie's infamous Picture Day sweater?
Unicorn.
Unicorn. And look what I brought. I brought my sweater.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
A little DIY of mine. So I brought that
Oh,
out for you.
I love that.
Okay. Next question. What was the name of the episode where Lizzie's mom takes her to get a bra?
Oh my God, I should know that because I took notes In my head, I went to like, oh, the one with the bra, as if it was like the naming scheme from Friends. Oh my God, I don't remember. I don't remember. What
Between
was
a
it?
between a rock and a bra place.
Mm, that's a
Yeah.
genius title.
All right. What famous early 2000s tween pop star did Lizzie kiss under the mistletoe?
Aaron.
Aaron
Aaron
Carter,
Carter.
R.I.P.
Yeah. R.I.P. Yeah.
Couple of Lizzie McGuire movie questions. In the Lizzie McGuire movie, what insult does Kate call Lizzie at their middle school graduation?
Oh my God. I haven't seen the movie in so long. I don't remember. I'm not
Okay,
going to be good at movie
that's
trivia.
all good. She tells her she's an outfit repeater.
Oh, yes. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, of course.
Well, hey, I think you did a great job on Quizzing McGuire.
I thought, do you want to know, do you know, like just was as I was like 5 minutes before this was trying to think about like all of their full names, which we discussed on day one in the writer's room. Do you know Gordo's full name?
David Gordon.
Do you know his middle name? David Zephyr Gordon.
Oh yes, Zephyr. That's in my notes from when I did the podcast. Yeah,
Which I which I think is so funny. And Lizzie is Elizabeth Brooke McGuire.
iconic, iconic. Well, Jonathan, thank you so much for your time, and I hope you
Um,
will keep posting TikToks, even if they're not all about Lizzie. I'm just enjoying hearing your insight on the industry and everything. So, again,
thank
thanks so
you.
much for speaking with Young Entertainment today.
Of course. Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Yeah, it was fun talking.
Thanks for FaceTiming.
All right. Bye.